What happens when artificial intelligence stops being just a tool we use and starts becoming something that makes decisions for us? And more importantly, what kind of world do we step into when those decisions begin shaping economies, justice systems, healthcare, wars, and even personal choices without human hands directly pulling the strings? It sounds like a distant science fiction scenario, but in reality, the shift is already underway. AI systems are no longer confined to answering questions or generating text. They are increasingly being used to recommend who gets a loan, which patient gets prioritized in a hospital, what news billions of people see, how supply chains are managed, and even how military surveillance operates. So the real question is not whether AI will make decisions for the world, but how much decision-making power we are willing to let it accumulate. At first, the idea seems efficient. Machines do not get tired, emotional, or biased in the human sense. They process massive amounts of data faster than any human team ever could. So if an AI system can allocate resources more efficiently than a government department, or detect diseases earlier than a doctor, why shouldn't we let it decide? Isn't that progress? But then another question emerges. Efficient for whom? Because decision-making is never neutral. Every choice reflects values, priorities, and consequences. When humans make decisions, even flawed ones, there is accountability. There is debate, disagreement, and responsibility. But when AI begins to make decisions at scale, where does accountability go? If an algorithm denies someone medical treatment or wrongly flags a person as a security threat, who is responsible? The programmer, the company, the government, or the machine itself? The uncomfortable truth is that AI does not understand consequences the way humans do. It optimizes patterns, it predicts outcomes, it follows mathematical objectives, but it does not feel fairness, injustice, or suffering. So when we ask whether AI should make decisions for the world, we also have to ask, can something without lived experience truly make morally grounded decisions? Still, the momentum is hard to ignore. In many systems, AI is already making soft decisions that shape human lives in very real ways. Social media feeds are curated by algorithms deciding what you should see next. Job applications are filtered by automated systems before a human even looks at them. Navigation apps decide traffic flows across entire cities. Financial algorithms influence markets in milliseconds. Each of these may seem small in isolation, but together they form a growing network of machine-led governance. So what happens when these systems begin to connect? When their decisions are no longer isolated, but interdependent? Do we slowly transition into a world where humans are not the primary decision-makers anymore, but supervisors of machine-driven logic? There is also a deeper psychological shift happening beneath the surface. When people start trusting AI systems more than human judgment, something subtle changes in how we think about authority. If an algorithm consistently appears accurate, we begin to assume it is also right. But accuracy is not the same as wisdom. And this raises another uncomfortable question. Are we confusing prediction with understanding? Imagine a future where AI manages entire cities. Traffic, energy distribution, policing patterns, healthcare allocation, disaster response, all optimized in real time. On paper, this sounds like a perfectly efficient society. Fewer errors, faster responses, reduced waste. But what happens to human agency in such a system? Do citizens become participants in governance, or simply data points being managed? And if everything becomes optimized for efficiency, what happens to values that are not easily quantifiable? How does an AI measure dignity, cultural identity, or moral justice? Can a system trained on past data truly understand what kind of future we want? Especially when want itself is deeply subjective and constantly evolving. Another question emerges. What happens when different AI systems disagree with each other? If one model suggests an economic policy and another predicts it will cause long-term instability, who resolves that conflict? Humans or machines? And if machines resolve it, based on what shared value system are they operating? One of the most overlooked risks is not that AI becomes malicious, but that it becomes unquestioningly followed. A system does not need intent to cause harm if it is deployed at scale without proper human oversight. History has already shown us that large systems, even when designed with good intentions, can produce unintended consequences when they become too complex for human comprehension. Now imagine that complexity multiplied by millions of interacting AI systems making decisions simultaneously. At that point, even the designers may not fully understand why a system behaves the way it does. So how do you regulate something that is both everywhere and partially opaque? There is also the question of inequality. If AI systems are controlled by a small number of corporations or governments, then decision-making power becomes concentrated at an unprecedented level. That means a handful of entities could indirectly influence global behavior through algorithmic systems. So are we building a more democratic future or a more centralized one disguised as automation? But it is not all dystopian. There is also a possibility that AI, if carefully designed and transparently governed, could reduce human bias in certain decisions. It could help identify patterns of inequality that humans overlook. It could assist in managing global crises that require coordination beyond human capability. So perhaps the question is not whether AI should make decisions, but where it should and should not. Where do we draw the line between assistance and authority? Between recommendation and control? Another layer to consider is human dependency. The more we rely on AI for decisions, the more we risk losing certain cognitive and social skills. If navigation systems disappear, can we still read maps? If recommendation systems vanish, can we still explore independently? If AI starts writing policies, diagnosing diseases, and managing infrastructure, do humans gradually lose the ability to do these things themselves? And if that happens, what does that mean for human identity in the long term? There is a deeper philosophical tension here. Humans have always defined themselves through decision-making. From personal choices to collective governance, the act of deciding has been central to what it means to be human. So if machines begin making those decisions at scale, are we redefining humanity itself, or slowly outsourcing it? Perhaps the most important question is not technological but existential. Do we want a world that is optimized for outcomes, or a world that preserves human struggle, imperfection, and participation in shaping those outcomes? Because a perfectly optimized world is not necessarily a meaningful one. At the same time, resisting AI decision-making entirely is not realistic either. The systems are already embedded in critical infrastructure, and their influence will only expand. So the challenge becomes less about rejection and more about design. How do we ensure transparency? How do we maintain accountability? How do we embed human values into systems that operate at machine speed? And most importantly, how do we prevent passive acceptance from replacing active governance? As AI continues to evolve, the boundary between tool and decision-maker will blur further. We may reach a point where decisions are co-produced by humans and machines in ways that are no longer easily separable. In such a world, responsibility cannot be outsourced. It must be shared, clearly defined, and continuously questioned. So as you consider this future, ask yourself, if an AI makes a decision that affects your life tomorrow, will you know how that decision was made? Will you be able to challenge it? And will there still be a human hand somewhere in the loop? Or will the system have already moved beyond that stage? Because the real transformation is not just about machines becoming smarter. It is about humans deciding how much of their world they are willing to let be decided without them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.